Hey, before we get into today's episode, if you're a podcast host or guest, listen up. I've produced over 200 podcast episodes and guested on 50 podcasts just in 2025 alone. And let me tell you, nothing grows your audience or builds trust faster than being in front of the right listeners. That's why I created my podcast tour offer. I'll help you map out your topics, strategize your message, and find you the most aligned podcasts and audiences to get you and your business in front of. So if you've ever thought, I just wish more eyes were on my work, this is your sign. Let's get you on a podcast tour. You can find all the details in the show notes. Just look for podcast tour. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back. I have a special guest here today, Polly Pollock. She's an author and founder of Neuropreneur Rising. She's a marketing coach for ADHD neurodivergent online business owners who want to build profitable businesses without the weight of social media by leaning into their unique natural strengths. I love this. We're going to be talking a lot about building visibility off of social media and using collaborations, being that I focus on podcast tours and getting off the social media grind and getting away from doing what people say. We're going to be talking about other options. So I'm thrilled to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. I feel like, as you said, it felt like such an aligned fit. And I feel like this is almost like a bit of a rebellious wave that's happening. Like, you don't need social media. There's other things that you can do. And it's nice to have these conversations.
Yes. So what made you realize that social media wasn't the only way or even the best way to run your business? What was that like for you that led you to this?
Do you know, I feel like it's so hard to pinpoint like one thing that led me to this point. But basically, before I even got into this business, I was in the marketing and sales world in corporate quite a long time. So I've kind of technically been in the marketing and sales world for kind of nearly a decade now. So I knew that social media wasn't the only way. But when I got into business, I felt this really weird, nervy, and this was obviously a while back, but I felt this really weird, like nervousness, like I was a fish out of water and I just had no idea what I was doing, even though I did. And this coach at the time kind of got hold of me and she was like, yeah, you need to start building on social media. And at the time it was beginning to kind of be all the rage. And she was like, there's no other way. Like you need to just like post all the time and just get visible, eyes on your content. It really did get into my head. And so I made that my everything and this was back when I had my first, it was a spiritual business at the time. And I did actually go viral. I had like a big spike in following and I got very, very visible. And then lo and behold, it started to tank. I had nothing else set up because I had spent all my time listening to this coach, even though I knew what I should be building my foundations on. And that really kind of was the first time I started to realize, okay, this is probably not the ideal way overall because it is so unsustainable. And honestly, in the years after that, I've just seen so many countless ADHD and neurodivergent online business owners burn out and even be on the brink of throwing the towel in because which is such a shame, because some of the most amazing people I've worked with are the people who were literally on the brink of throwing the towel in social media. Like they have amazing businesses and incredible work, but I've just seen how that's impacted people over the years. And it is, in a not very nutshell, that's really my take on it.
And it's also so risky, I've come to realize, to only rely on social media because I know people that have lost their accounts and never gotten back in. And so if you only have your business there, you're really rolling the dice to hope and pray that it's never going to get taken away from you, or you're never going to be banned, or you're never going to be locked out. And now you have no one's emails and you've done all this work and you're left with zero, versus if you at least had an email list or if you at least had some other things going on, which I'm sure we're going to get into. So with that, a lot of people do feel like it would just need to be everywhere online. And I was doing the same things before I sort of reflected myself and changed course, but that feeling is definitely real. And it feels like that's the only way to be seen. So what's the first step in reframing that in our own minds?
It's kind of this mindset that we get into in business, which is like, you assume out of logic, the more people I can appeal to, the better. And you soon start to realize in business, oh, that's not how it works. I got a niche down, or niching up as I call it. That kind of mentality feeds into this whole thing of I need to be everywhere all at once. The way that I always like to cut that down straight away is your ideal client. Once you really get clear on who they are they in all of those places, or are they likely to be in half of those places or any of those places? Because if you work with, I don't know, old age pensioners, like old people, they're not going to be on Instagram, are they? Like, but you're posting on Instagram but you probably have more luck at approaching care homes. You know what I mean? I know it's a really weird example, but like, you know what I mean? Your ideal client, you need to assess, are they going to be in those places, or are you actually just wasting your time in the name of like more visibility?
Absolutely. I think I was guilty of this when someone was like, well, the next step is start a LinkedIn. You got to get on LinkedIn. So I did it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I don't want to be here. I knew right away. I don't think my people were on there. I don't think they were. Do you find that sometimes clients come to you and they're just like waiting for you to tell them, hey, just do this? I know I felt like that a few years back. I was going through some pivots in my business and I was like, I could do a lot of things. I just want someone to tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so then we fall into that trap of somebody else thought this would work for you, which it could work. Someone told me once, like, all of the tools work. It's proven that LinkedIn would work or Instagram would work, but they're not all going to work for you, and figuring that out. But do you find that people come with that sort of, just tell me what to do and I'll do it because I'm sick of not being seen?
No, for sure. Like, this is why we've seen such a dramatic response to these, those like B-roll reels that's like, here's like my 200 reel hook ideas that will explode your business, like, and people are like commenting like, yes, send it to me. And then like my students, before they like come and work with me, they've got downloads upon downloads of all of that, just a bunch of shit in their inbox that they haven't used. But that mentality of like, just give me the magic pill that's going to work, of course we want that, everybody wants that, but that's not how it works. So my students definitely do feel that when they come to me, and yes, they want someone to say, do this. And like, I find that in my work especially, what I'll do is, it's like, I'm not going to say do this, but we're going to go through what's true for you right now, your goals, your capacity, your energy, like all of the things that matter, what your ideal client, who they are, where they're going to be, like in terms of visibility. Look at all of the stuff of like what makes sense for your business and what feels good for you. Then I'll tell you like, okay, here's some action steps that you can try, because I'd honestly be a useless coach if I didn't do that. So yeah, but people do, they want like, just tell me what to do, but it's like, it's not that simple. Let's work all this stuff out. Let's untangle this mess, and then we can go forward together.
100%. Okay, so moving into then the collaboration piece, what does collaboration as a visibility strategy actually look like?
There are so many different types of collaborations that you can do. I think something I've noticed as well, when I say the word collaboration, people think that it's like you running an event with another person and there's all this organizing and you're working like as a team on this long project. And I'm like, well, that's one way of doing it. That's not the kind of collaborations I'm talking about in terms of the like high output visibility side of things. So that's something that I've actually noticed people getting really confused about more recently. I had a student the other day and we were talking about collaborations, and she was just like, yeah, I don't work well with other people when I'm organizing stuff. I really don't want to do that. I was like, it's okay, I didn't mean that. Let's go over what it really is. Like, it doesn't have to be that. Obviously, podcast guesting is one of my favorite ones to do. And this is where it gets to be really fun, because you get to almost get to know yourself on a deeper level of like, where are my gifts? What do I enjoy? How do I best share and best show up? And how can I utilize that through a collaboration? Because online summits, events, you can do guest trainings in people's memberships, workshops, all of that stuff, podcasting. I mean, there are so many, and I think that there's something for everyone if you're a little bit more introverted. Even podcasts, I mean, I've met so many introverts who you wouldn't think enjoys podcasts, but actually podcast guesting can be really introvert friendly as well. So that's my take on it. I really think there's the fun element to it, because you get to choose what feels right for you, versus when you're doing something like showing up on social media every day, it's performance based and it's just a different feel.
Absolutely. I consider myself a big introvert as well. And that's why I love podcasting, because it's a one-on-one situation. It's no small talk and chit chat that we tend not to like as introverts. I can agree with you on that for sure. I mean, we're doing a great example of a collaboration where I spoke on your podcast, you're speaking on mine, but you don't necessarily have to have a podcast to utilize that either. I have even done a blog swap. Really, so many things. It's just not in the forefront of our minds. And that's why I'm glad we're kind of bringing this to light today. Do you have a way for them to start looking for these things? Like, how do they even go about it?
I mean, again, like endless, but there are really great groups. Like Facebook groups is pretty good. Like I think people think, oh, do people even use Facebook anymore? But in terms of for things like networking and searching for opportunities, it's really good. You can find some really great Facebook groups for these kind of things. Threads is actually, I'm not like social media heavy in the work that I teach, but I would recommend using it for sourcing opportunities and like the networking side of it. I just don't think we need to be posting content out of our asses every day. But
Yes.
Threads is really good. And I find like once you have built a bit of a network, you tend to be notified when, at least for like online summits, bundles, events and things like that, which are really great, have been amazing for me and my students in terms of like email list growth specifically. You tend to get pinged and notified like when regular hosts have another thing going on, and you can really build your own network so it doesn't feel like you're constantly looking for new opportunities. But in terms of like podcasting specifically, yeah, there's some really great things like Facebook groups. I know you hate it and so do I, but LinkedIn is actually like one of the places you can find some things as well.
Is it? Okay.
It has been. Yeah.
Good. I mean, to be fair, I didn't give it like a very long try. I was just like, ugh. But that's true. There are people in business over there running businesses. So that makes sense. Okay. Anything else to add about what it looks like to be off social media, like, and have a visibility strategy? Like, how do you make sure that this is ongoing? How do you keep track of all these things that you sign up for or that you're going to speak on? What does that actually look like to be running an online business off of social media?
There's so much unlearning that you do when you come off of social media because your system completely readjusts. Like I had a really weird experience when I came off of socials because for the first couple of weeks I was like, this is awesome. Like I was so free, like my headspace is clear. And then I started to get twitchy. I was like, this feels weird. My system has been on this like a rash for years and I just stopped. And it was in a way, and it's months down the line now, I'm still readjusting from not being on Instagram, even though I really looked at the output I was giving to Instagram versus like what I was getting back in. And I compared it to all of my other marketing avenues that I was already doing before. And it just was not worth it. And I was like, what am I even doing? I don't enjoy posting social media content. I just want to podcast all the time, like on my podcast. I had already a plan, kind of a structure of the way I was getting visible and marketing beyond social media. The first thing I did was like, okay, because a lot of people say I don't have time to focus on other marketing avenues. Well, I would love to know how long each day you're spending on an Instagram post. And that's honestly sometimes the first thing I go into with people when they're like, social media is not working for me. I need to start getting visible in more sustainable places, but I don't have time. And I'm like, okay, how long are you spending? Because I know, especially with my students, for example, before, they join me, they're perfectionists. They have such a depth of message and wealth of knowledge that they always try and put in one like carousel on Instagram, and they end up sitting there for 3 hours trying to perfect it. So I'm like, okay, how can we put this time into, take it away from things like Instagram or the things that aren't bringing you in the results and put it into other visibility strategies? Like, can you maybe set aside an hour a week to start off with for sourcing visibility opportunities like podcast guesting, summits, online events, whatever it is, and focus on that kind of top of funnel visibility piece? Then maybe can you schedule in an hour a week to apply for those things and put them on a tracker? Trackers are needed for this stuff because you will not keep track of them. I mean, especially if you are ADHD or busy brained in any way, it's not going to happen. Just do yourself a favor. We have so many gifts as like neurodivergents, but yeah, we need trackers to keep us on track, quite literally. I think the time is honestly a big part of the strategy because you'd be surprised at how many people are like, I don't have time. I need clients, but I don't have time.
Yeah, I know it's not one size fits all either, but for people that are trying to limit their social media or transition out of it, are there some places that you recommend starting first?
The place you want to be driving people to is absolutely your email list. So that's kind of your middle of funnel, if you like. You've got your visibility, how you're going to get the right eyes on your work. Then you need something, for example, like a lead magnet to bring them out of those places, whatever they are. And I would absolutely advise, you're right, it's not one size fits all, but something that I am a bit one size fits all about is make your email list your central hub for your marketing. you own your email list. Your engagement, open rates, reach rates, conversion rates are absolutely sky high compared to what you get on Instagram. You need an email list. That is something that I'll die on that hill about. Part that isn't one size fits all is like how you get people on there and what you do when they're there. And that's the warming up and sales conversion part is totally, and the visibility part is definitely down to the individual. But that's a flow that I like to teach, is like get visible off social, bring people onto your email list and work out how you're going to convert them on your email list.
Absolutely. That fits well with what I tell people too, like at the end of a podcast when we're strategizing, like, okay, now where are you going to send someone after you've guessed on that podcast? And you can say, oh, just go to my social media, but then you don't get to know if they came from that podcast. You don't get to know their email. You don't a chance to do so many things. And so it's so much better to send them somewhere where they're going to plug their email in and they get something of value from you, you know, then you get their email address and you can nurture them in those emails. So I agree. I think that's vital. And I've just seen too many people lose their social media, like I've already said, and now you don't have any of the people that you've worked so hard to get eyes on, and they're going to forget about you. They're not going to go, where's Candace? I got to go find her now, find her new account. Like, that's just not how it works, unfortunately. So I'm glad to hear you say that email list part. Like, if you don't have one yet and you're listening, start it. Do you have any favorite platforms or things you want to recommend in that regard?
Oh yeah, Flowdesk.
For emails?
I'm not a partner or anything like that, but I love Flowdesk just for my brain.
Same, that's what I use.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? It's like, my God,
it just seems like simple, clean, flows match how my brain wants it to
literally.
look.
Yeah, and it's like creative, it's artsy, but it's simple. Like even the way that you can like segment your audience. Like I've tried using like MailChimp and loads of stuff before, and I couldn't deal with the workflow situation where it's just, I couldn't bear it. So yeah, I love Flowdesk. I'd recommend.
Me too. How can you tell your collaboration's working? What makes a difference between it fizzling out or really being something that works well for you?
Do you mean like overall per collaboration?
Can we do both?
Yeah. So like per collaboration, when you're doing things like summits and online events, or maybe something where like you provide free product and you get people in the event signing up to your list because you donated the paid product for free, you can kind of track like through things like coupon codes where those things are coming from. So if it was from like a certain event, that is the easiest way, and you can kind of split it off that way, and you can then say, okay, that host did a summit that was really good, I'm definitely going to keep them on file for next time, or like I'm going to be looking for their events. Or if you can see which ones were a flop and maybe why, it could have been like the style of the event, the audience, like maybe it was just not aligned, and vice versa. But it can be pretty hard to do that through things like podcast guesting, unless you literally just ask people, where did you find me? And that's sometimes all we need to do. And we forget that we can just talk to people like humans. But I mean, it's hard because if someone joins your email list, unless you have it on the email list form, like where did you find me, and they can kind of write a little sentence, it's going to be hard to know. But I don't know, that might be a little bit too clunky for a lot of people, so it's not something that I'd really recommend. I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. But you know, in terms of like clients signing on with you or people buying your products, that's when you can kind of ask people, where did you hear about me? And if they remember what podcast or whatever it is that you've done, then that's where they can tell you. So that's how you can track the individual ones. And then collaborations as a whole, how to know if they're working for you or not. Again, it's kind of down to clients coming in, or, you know, people joining your email list at a more kind of top of funnel, middle funnel rate. Say if you are noticing, okay, I've featured on all these podcasts, but no one's joining my list, I'd be looking at what you're providing to get them on your list. It could be a myriad of things. Are you actually providing anything? Or like you said earlier, are you just saying, head to my social media, because your social media isn't going to do the job of getting people on your list? Honestly, the chances of someone following you and never seeing your posts ever again in a million years is so incredibly, insanely high these days. So you need a really high quality lead magnet. And that could be the other thing, is like, is the quality of lead magnet something that your ideal client genuinely wants? Or is it just like don't mean to be harsh, or is it just like a ebook that you've thrown together and asked ChatGPT to write it all, and you're like, here's a lead magnet? And then obviously looking at whether the places that you're getting visible in are actually aligned with your ideal client. It's like a myriad of things that you could be kind of troubleshooting to make sure that they're working.
Yeah, I feel like what I'm hearing is a lead magnet is pretty important when you're trying to do this. Like when you're trying to get off of social media, you still need to have a way to bring people into you. And so that lead magnet is that very first thing where people are saying, yes, she has something of value. That looks good to me. I really want to go see what that is. So it sounds like that's a pretty important part to getting set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say we're seeing a very big change with lead magnets over the last kind of couple of years, especially because kind of 5-6 years ago, probably even less, the really like low lift kind of tools were, and freebies, PDFs, checklists were all the rage. And I think people are kind of over those a little bit, unless it makes total sense for what you're giving. And again, this is not a blanket statement because it might make total sense for what you're doing or what you're offering. But a lot of the time people just default to, I'll make a checklist, I'll make a free guide. And people don't engage with those very much anymore, as like if we're talking wide span. So I would look at how you can get really creative and see like, okay, what does my ideal client need and want right now? What have they tried before? What are they bored of? Looking really like at a deep level so that you can create something that's almost like a free no-brainer lead magnet. They're going to be like, I've heard this chick on a podcast and I love everything that I'm hearing. And, I've got this free thing to check out that's going to be of value to me. Because also people forget, if you say just sign up for my email list, there's no incentive beyond, like, they probably do want to hear from you and they probably do want to sign up to your list, but people need a driver. They really do.
That's a great point. And I can attest to, I changed my lead magnet last November and it changed everything because I had a PDF and it was good, but it was about getting started with podcast guesting. Well, when I would get on the shows, I would already share basically the main tips in there because that's what I was sharing on the show. And so it's kind of like a repeat. And also I do think people are really burnt out on just downloadables, just like the PDFs, unless I did just download one this week. After I say that, I did download this. It was like an audit guide from a guest that I had on. I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. So it can be done right, but I just think it was overdone. And so I switched to, what is that next step that once someone decides like, yeah, I'm going to start podcast guesting, like what's the next step? Well, they want to get booked on a show. And so then mine was switched over to that community, podcast matchmaking community. It's free and it's through my Stan Store account. And I just set it up for hosts and guests to get in there, fill like a mini form out about their speaking topics or what topics they want to have on their show and how they want to be contacted so that they can just immediately connect without that cold pitch. And so that's worked really well. And that's the first thing ever. Like, I think you'll know, like that was the first thing that I launched and it popped off and I had 100 people in like the first 10 days and it's up to almost 400 now. Like that's never, ever in my 8 years of trying all the things. Like, how about this downloadable? How about this? How about this meditation? I'll link it in a YouTube. Like I'll send you free links, like all these things that I've tried, like this was the first thing. So I think you'll know once you hit that thing that works for you. What worked for me was thinking like, okay, if I am going to speak on podcasts and that's my top of funnel, what's the next step that someone's going to get like that quick win versus just regurgitating what I was already sharing on the podcast, which I think might be helpful to think about.
Definitely. Yeah, you're so right. Like every point in your marketing journey kind of needs to take someone to the next step of getting to your main offer, right? And what you've just said makes total sense because someone listens to a podcast where you're featuring on it, talking about how to get into podcast guesting. They're like, oh my God, I want to do this. Like, I'm ready now to take action. That's what I imagine someone's, you're right. The last thing that they're probably going to want to do is read the same information. But now it's like you get to come into this community for free and you can find things straight away. It's like ready for you to take action on it. So it makes total sense. And I was actually talking about this on another podcast the other day. And I was sort of making the bold statement that I really feel like we are being forced in a way, and I love it because I'm all about this stuff, to bring back some kind of live aspect to our free stuff or our very low ticket kind of stuff, or both. And I feel like that's what people are really craving. Everything is AI now. Everything is done for you. Like people in a lot of definitely coaching and service provider kind of industries, consumers are wanting that live aspect. And that doesn't mean that you have to spend your days hopping on free one-to-one calls with people, but even your community, that's a live aspect, like something like that. People people really are responding a lot better to that statistically. I'm even seeing that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that pendulum has really swung back where people want to know that it's a human and it's a real person behind what's going on. Okay, you're going to give the perfect example for this now. You're going to show the listener how this could actually work.
Actually do have something live that I have just started running. Obviously, the 6-part audio training series is great, but this is even better. I run now weekly live sessions for people on my email list specifically, which is called the Procrastination Station. And that is pretty much for busy brains, ADHD, online business owners. Maybe you're feeling just like marketing is not, there's something about you and marketing that just isn't gelling because you're trying to, like we've been talking about, be everywhere at once, fill your brain with every ounce of information you can and just hope that something will come of it. And it's more about not just the information and the strategy, but it's like something else needs to shift, and it's the way that your brain works that feels like the struggle within all of this. Within these sessions, you basically get to come with any of your questions. We do focus primarily on how to get visible and market without social media. That is kind of our main focus, but it is really for you to bring the questions that are causing you to be maybe a little bit of a procrastinator.
All right. Well, I will link that in the show notes. You can head there, and thanks, Polly, for all of the knowledge that you just dropped today. Hey, before you go, if you've ever wished podcast guesting or hosting felt a little easier, you're going to love this. I started a free podcast matchmaking community where hosts and guests can actually connect, swap shows, and find aligned conversations without all the cold pitching and chaos. It's totally free, it's super fun, and it's growing every day. So whether you're looking to grow your audience, get in front of the right people, or just finally get your message out there, come join us. You can find the link in the show notes to join the community.